All right, we are on to our next person in history, third grade, and we are going to turn to page 458, chapter 47, and we're going to talk about Barack Obama. And again, I just get so excited because this is your history. This is, not just, people that were alive way back then. No, he is alive today, just like George Bush. And we, like I said, Elizabeth Elliot, she died a little bit, ago, but you were alive during her lifetime. Now, these are men that are still alive today. And, years from now, when this book, is being read to your kids or, other generations, you can say, oh, yeah, I was alive during this time. I was alive during the lives of these men, and it'll be your history as well, which is kind of really cool. So look at the date, because Barack Obama was born in 1961 and he's still alive. So like I said, he's part of our history. He's alive today, and we may not ever meet him or see him. You never know, we might, but he is alive during our lifetime, which is really neat to think about. Early life. Barack Obama sat on the bench at the 1979 Hawaii High School Championship basketball game, hoping for a chance to play. Finally, he heard his coach call his name. "Barry," he yelled his coach, "go in for your teammate." While many high school ball players hoped to become professional athletes, Barry would achieve something much greater: becoming the President of the United States. Most young boys are like, my goal is to be in the NBA someday, and I just want to play professional basketball. And that might have been his goal too, but there was something else that was in store for him. After growing up in Hawaii and in the island country of Indonesia, Barack Obama attended college first in Los Angeles and then in New York. After college, he moved to Chicago and worked for 3 years helping to make poor neighborhoods a safer place to live. When he decided to get more education, he chose to attend Harvard Law School and become a lawyer. While at Harvard, he met his future wife, Michelle, serving his country. After college, Mr. Obama continued to help his Chicago community in several ways. In 1992, he started a project to encourage African Americans to exercise their right to vote for government leaders. Now, we had already talked about the fact that that right was finally granted, through, other presidents and other people, back in the civil rights time, Dwight Eisenhower and that time. But some, even though they were given the right, were thinking, what difference is my vote going to make? It really doesn't make a difference. And Barack Obama is trying to encourage them, no, every vote makes a difference. This is why people fought so hard to be able to vote. And that's why people went to all the measures that they did, so that you could have a right to vote someday. No matter the color of your skin, no matter if you were a woman, no matter who you were, you have a right to vote. And people have given so much of their time and energy to making that happen. Don't dismiss it and act like it doesn't make a difference, because it can. So he encouraged them to try to be more active in voting. Later, Mr. Obama became an attorney or lawyer for civil rights and worked as a college professor. And remember, we've talked about civil rights before. We've talked about, you can go back to page 95 in this book, Patrick Henry insisted on a Bill of Rights that would be the rights that all Americans should be granted. And as a lawyer, Mr. Obama represented people whose civil rights might have been violated or taken away from them. So he was a lawyer for civil rights, and he worked as a college professor as well. Since he was interested in government, he decided to run for Illinois state senator in 1996 and easily won. Several years later, Mr. Obama was elected as a United States senator. So he was governor, Illinois state senator, and now United States senator, also representing the state of Illinois. In 2007, Senator Obama announced to the nation that he would be running for President of the United States. Before we go on, let's look at the words at the bottom and names. Important words: cabinet. Those are people chosen by the president to help him run the country. Okay. Then important names: Barack Obama, obviously, the 44th President of the United States, and the first African American president. Sotomayor, I cannot hardly say her name. So Sonia Sotomayor. She was the first Hispanic member of the Supreme Court. So we talked about the first woman of the Supreme Court that had been chosen, and I can't even remember, but you remember that, Sandra Day O'Connor, that we talked about with Ronald Reagan. That's who it was. Sorry, I'm trying to think through. And then, but Sonia Sotomayor, she was the first Hispanic member of the Supreme Court. And then ISIS. It's a terrorist group whose goal is to gain power by harming those who stand against them, who stand in their way. They're going to just plow right through and cause harm. So again, the last little part of page 459 says Barack Obama. So he told the United States that he would be running for president. Barack Obama won the election and made history, becoming the first African American president and the first president born outside the continental United States. Now remember, continental United States is all those 48 states that are on the same land. So because he was born in Hawaii, that's still part of our United States, but it's just not the continental United States. So Alaska and Hawaii are kind of off to the side. We saw those on our maps or whatever, so you understand that. So the first African American president and the first president born outside the continental United States. He served his country 8 years as the 44th president. The newly elected President Obama began looking for more ways for the government to take care of the people. In 2010, Congress agreed to the Health Care Act, or the Health Care Bill, called the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which some called Obamacare. While President Obama wanted to lower the cost of health care to allow every American the opportunity to get the medical care needed, others in government were concerned about who would end up paying for the care. This disagreement would still be important at the end of President Obama's time in office. And then again, really quickly look at the picture. It says President Obama's second inauguration. So this was the second inauguration. It's not showing the first one, where he took the oath of office using Bibles owned by Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr. So remember, when a president is on inauguration day, a president is sworn into office, we say, they place their hand on the Bible and they say that I promise to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and do my best to preserve and protect and the people of the United States. They put their hand on the Bible to make that promise. And so he used Abraham Lincoln's and Martin Luther King Jr.'s Bibles that they had, which is kind of an interesting thing. Bonus fact, before we get to the rest of our thing as well, Mr. Obama promised his daughters that if he were elected as president, he would get them a dog. So he's like, yeah, if I get elected, we'll get you a dog. And then he's elected, so now he's got to follow through. He kept his promise and bought them a Portuguese water dog as a pet. So they were very excited when he was elected into office. So very interesting. All right, so to fill an empty seat on the Supreme Court, President Obama appointed Sonia Sotomayor, the first Hispanic justice to serve in that position. Supreme Court justices have a very important role in making decisions that affect our nation's laws. Those who are appointed serve until they retire or die. So this is a huge thing to be a part of the Supreme Court. You serve until you die or you decide to retire. You're not going to be necessarily just kind of pushed out of that or voted out of that. So look back at page 460, important places, continental United States, the 48 states together on the continent of North America, like I was talking about. So, we know that Alaska, and we talked about Hawaii being in the island in the Pacific Ocean, that those are not considered part of the continental United States just because they're not on that continent, our North American continent. Then the Gulf Coast region is coastal land along the Gulf of Mexico. And you can look down and see the Gulf Coast region there. And we'll talk about that. World events. In January of 2010, a large earthquake heavily damaged the island country of Haiti and caused the deaths of thousands of people. The United States sent Haiti $100 million in aid, along with many troops to help the people of Haiti. Several Christian organizations also sent food and water. Many American families adopted children who had lost their parents in the earthquake. Later that year, the British oil company BP had an offshore oil rig explode in the Gulf of Mexico, leaking oil into the Gulf waters. This oil spill spread across 1,100 miles of United States shoreline in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The oil spill killed many coastal birds and sea animals. The Gulf Coast region lost billions of dollars, mainly from fewer tourists since they could not vacation in the area. Many people love to go down to that Gulf Coast region. The beaches in Florida and Alabama, especially Florida, they're just beautiful beaches. And so all of those areas down there where people might go and hang out and enjoy and spend time with their families, there were globs and globs of oil on the beaches and dead animals because they couldn't survive all of that. So they lost so much money because people weren't going down to Florida to visit. They weren't going to the beaches anymore. And it was just a very tough time. And you can look at the picture. They're cleaning oil up on the Mississippi coast. They're just trying to get that oil out of the water, off of the beaches and all of that. It was a really tough time. Seeking peace. President Obama worked with other countries to end wars and help bring peace. For this work, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009. He attempted to end the war on terror and worked with his cabinet, remember those people that are there to help a president run the country, to bring home all the United States soldiers who were fighting around the world. While he did not get all the troops home by the time he had hoped, he did reduce the number of troops serving outside the United States. Some members of the government feared that a smaller military presence around the world would cause more war in the future. In 2011, the United States was successful in finding and stopping Osama bin Laden. And remember, we talked about those names before, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, people that wanted to harm the United States as much as possible, that were in charge and agreement with the September 11th attacks. So the United States was successful in finding and stopping Osama bin Laden, the terrorist leader from Afghanistan. Later that year, President Obama declared the war in Iraq to be over. And in 2014, he announced the end of the combat mission in Afghanistan. Trouble in the Middle East. After President Obama brought an end to the war on terror in Afghanistan and Iraq, new terrorist groups began to grow. One group, known as ISIS or ISIL, began seeking to harm people who stand against terrorist activity throughout the Middle East and the world. The United States sent aid and support troops to countries battling ISIS and ordered military planes to fight against ISIS and protect the countries of the Middle East. This worldwide problem was one of President Obama's main concerns during his final years in office. This was a big deal. We stopped the wars, but then these other little cells started growing up, and then we have to make sure that they don't take over. After the presidency. After leaving office in 2017 and taking a short break, Mr. Obama began planning his presidential library, a museum which each recent president has designed after his time in office. He continued helping the city of Chicago, donating $2 million to create job training programs for people there. He also spends time writing books and giving speeches, promoting world peace, and helping children have a better life. So that's the end, comprehension check if you want to work on that and see what you can remember from what we just talked about with President Barack Obama. But another amazing life that we can look at and see at the end here. And this is why I wanted to go over these, because these are people, like I said, from our history that we can learn from and grow from and see the great things that they did for our country. And we've got one more tomorrow, so hang on and we'll find out about our next person tomorrow. All right, I love you and I will see you soon, and I hope that you're having a great day. Half days. I mean, come on, how great is that, right? So hopefully you're having a great day, and we will see you in the next video. See you, love you, bye.